I was supposed to be house-sitting. That's all it was. My coworker Jeff had begged me last minute. He and his husband were flying to Italy for their anniversary, and their regular guy bailed. Just feed the cats, bring in the mail, and make sure the pipes don't explode, he said. You'll barely notice you're there. What he didn't mention was that his nephew had moved in 2 weeks earlier. I found out when I unlocked the door on Saturday morning and saw a half-naked guy sprawled across the couch, fast asleep, snoring like he hadn't touched a pillow in years. He had tattoos down his arm, a light dusting of chest hair, and the kind of sleep must curls that made you stare longer than you should. His mouth was slightly open, one leg thrown over the back of the couch like he owned the place. I froze halfway into the living room. Hello? The guy blinked, groaned, then rubbed his eyes and sat up. Oh, shit. You're not Jeff. Nope, definitely not. He swung his legs off the couch, still shirtless, and yawned. You must be Ian. Yeah, who are you? Adam, he said, standing and stretching in one fluid motion that made me look away. Jeff's nephew, temporary roommate/cat babysitter. Well, that makes 2 of us. The first 48 hours were awkward. We circled around each other like territorial cats. I spent most of my time upstairs in the guest room, earbuds in, pretending I had emails to answer. He spent most of his time downstairs with the TV too loud, cracking open LaCroix after LaCroix and talking to the cats like they were his drinking buddies. It wasn't that we didn't talk. We did small surface-level stuff. Weather, work. Jeff's neurotic calico, whom Adam insisted was possessed. But something about him put me on edge, not in a bad way, just like I had to stay on guard, like he'd see right through me if I wasn't careful. He had that kind of charm, the quiet, casual confidence of someone who's never had to second-guess their own magnetism. Everything about him felt effortless, and I hated how aware I was of that. Monday night, we both ended up in the kitchen at the same time. I was digging through the fridge for dinner. He was standing shirtless at the sink, rinsing dishes. He glanced at me. You cook? I held up a container of leftover pad thai, bare minimum. Nice, he said, shutting off the tap. I made extra pasta earlier. Want some? I hesitated. Sure, so we ate together, at the counter, sharing one stool between us because the other one wobbled too much. He poured wine. I laughed too hard at one of his stories, and for a second, it felt less like house-sitting and more like something else, something I didn't want to define. Later, after I'd gone up to my room, I brushed my teeth, crawled into bed, and tried not to think about how good he'd looked under the kitchen light. Tanned shoulders, a birthmark near his collarbone I hadn't noticed before. I was just starting to drift off when I heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, hesitant, then a knock on my door. Soft, 3 quick taps. I sat up. Yeah? The door creaked open an inch. Hey, he said. Sorry, I know it's late. What's up? He shifted, silhouetted in the hallway light. You mind if I crash in here tonight? My breath caught. What? I don't know, he said. I just don't feel like being alone. I didn't answer right away. Adam stood there, backlit by the hallway light, wearing nothing but those thin pajama shorts that hung low on his hips. His voice had been quiet, almost unsure. It didn't match the guy who cracked jokes at the kitchen counter and walked around the house barefoot like he'd built it himself. You okay? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. He rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, just weird dreams. I don't know. I'll go if it's weird. I should have told him no. I should have said, it's weird, because it was. But instead, I shifted to one side of the bed and said, yeah, sure. Just don't hog the blanket. He slipped inside a second later, warm and quiet. We lay there in the dark, backs turned toward each other. The only sound was the creak of the old ceiling fan and the occasional shift of sheets as we both tried to pretend this wasn't strange. You always sleep this tense, he whispered. I gave a half laugh. Not usually sharing a bed with a stranger. He chuckled softly. Fair enough. A pause. Then he said, "I didn't think you'd say yes." Me neither. I could feel the heat from his body, even though we weren't touching. That soft awareness that comes when someone's close enough to feel, but not quite close enough to touch. And then, like it was nothing, he reached over and draped a hand across my stomach. Not possessive, not playful, just there. I stiffened. "Sorry," he murmured, starting to pull away. But I didn't stop him. "No, it's fine." His hand stayed. Morning came fast, and I pretended to still be asleep as Adam slipped out of bed, grabbed his phone off the nightstand, and padded downstairs. I stared at the ceiling, heart thumping like I'd run a mile. What the hell had that been? Nothing had happened, technically, but the way he touched me, that wasn't nothing. I spent most of the day avoiding him. I claimed I had work to do. Headphones in, laptop open. I looked the part of someone too busy to chat. He didn't push it. He didn't say a word about the night before. But that night, after brushing my teeth, I hesitated outside my bedroom door, half expecting him to show up again. He didn't. I crawled into bed alone. Half an hour later, the floorboard outside my room creaked, and a second after that, 3 soft knocks. I opened the door. He looked tired, and maybe a little embarrassed. "Again?" I asked. He didn't answer, just looked at me with those dark, unreadable eyes. I stepped aside to let him in. This time, he didn't wait before sliding under the covers. He settled in on his side, facing me. The air between us was heavy. "Do you do this often?" I asked quietly. "Do what? Crawl into bed with guys you barely know?" His expression flickered, something between a smirk and a frown. "You think I don't know you?" I didn't answer. "I know you're quiet," he said. "I know you hum when you're brushing your teeth. I know you can't fall asleep unless it's totally dark. And I know," he added, voice dipping lower, "that you notice me, even when you're pretending not to." I swallowed. "So what is this?" "I don't know," he said, "but I don't want it to stop." That night, we didn't sleep right away. We didn't touch. Not beyond his hand brushing mine beneath the blanket, but we lay there facing each other, eyes adjusting to the dark, and there was this weight to it, like we were waiting for something neither of us wanted to name. "You know Jeff's gonna kill us if he finds out," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Adam smirked. "What's he gonna kill us for?" "Sleeping under the same roof? Pretty sure that's covered under the house-sitting contract." "You know what I mean." He didn't answer right away. Just looked at me for a long moment. "I'm not trying to screw things up," he said finally. It felt honest. Too honest. I wanted to believe him, but I also didn't know what this was. This thing we kept falling into without meaning to. When I woke the next morning, he was still there. One arm draped across me, his face slack with sleep, his chest rising and falling, in a slow, steady rhythm. It should have felt weird. It should have made me uncomfortable. But it didn't. It felt good. Familiar in a way it had no right to. I stayed still, eyes open, just listening to his breathing, until he stirred and blinked at me with a sleepy grin. "Morning. Morning." His hand didn't move right away. Neither did I. Eventually, he sat up, ran a hand through his hair, and said, "Don't worry, I'll make coffee." And just like that, we fell into another day of pretending nothing was happening. That night, I waited to hear the knock again. It didn't come. I stayed up until almost 2 a.m., scrolling my phone, flipping through shows I wasn't watching, heart thumping at every sound from the hallway. Finally, I got up, walked downstairs. He was on the couch, lying on his back, arm thrown over his eyes, a forgotten beer bottle on the floor beside him. "You okay?" I asked. He didn't move. "I didn't want to assume," he mumbled. "What?" "Didn't want to be that guy who just shows up again." I took a breath. "Then maybe don't knock next time. Just come in." That got him to lift his arm, eyes meeting mine in the glow of the streetlight outside. "You sure?" "No," I said, "but do it anyway." He didn't sleep on the couch again after that. We didn't talk about it, we didn't kiss. We didn't touch, beyond the way our arms would brush under the blanket, or the way his knee would press against mine as we shifted in the night. But there was tension now, Heavy, taut, unspoken. Like a wire stretched between us, just waiting for one of us to pull too hard and make it snap. He started lingering more during the day, following me into the kitchen, sitting close when we watched TV, finding reasons to pass by me in the hallway and brush his hand against my back like it was nothing. One night, we were watching some dumb reality show in Jeff's overfurnished living room. I made a joke about one of the contestants, and Adam laughed, really laughed, the kind that made his head fall back and his hand land on my thigh without thinking. And he didn't move it, neither did I. That night, when we got into bed, something was different. He didn't settle in right away. He just stood there, by the side of the bed, staring at me in the dark. "What?" I asked. He shook his head. "I keep thinking I'm gonna mess this up." "You haven't yet." "I always do." I sat up. "Then don't." A long pause. Then he climbed in, pulled the blanket over us both, and for the first time since this started, he leaned in, slow, uncertain, eyes flicking to mine like he was asking permission. I didn't stop him. His lips brushed mine, light, cautious. Then again, a little firmer. He pulled back, waited. I looked at him, and then I kissed him. It wasn't a wild kiss. There was no music swelling in the background or passionate clothes ripping. It was soft, hesitant, the kind of kiss where both people are still deciding whether they should be doing it at all. But I didn't pull away. Neither did he. His lips were warm, a little dry. He tasted faintly like the mint gum he always chewed at night. When he pressed in just a little more, deepening it, I found myself responding automatically, mouth parting, fingers brushing his side through the thin fabric of his shirt. Then we stopped, both of us breathing a little harder than before, eyes barely adjusted to the dark. "I didn't plan that," he murmured, forehead resting lightly against mine. "I didn't either." He smiled, just barely. "Guess that makes us even." We didn't talk after that. He slid an arm around my waist, pulled me in, and we lay there, bodies touching in quiet, unspoken ways. My heart was pounding in my chest, but not in the bad way. Not in the "this is a mistake" kind of way. It felt terrifying. But it also felt like something I didn't want to lose. The next morning was awkward. Not bad, just careful. He was up before me, already in the kitchen when I came down. He poured coffee without looking up. "Sleep okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "You?" He nodded. "Didn't mean to make things weird." "They're already weird." He laughed softly. "Fair." We didn't mention the kiss, or the way I'd fallen asleep with my head on his chest, his fingers brushing slow, thoughtless circles into my back like it was the most natural thing in the world. But something had shifted. I could feel it. The air between us had gone from curious to charged, the kind of charge that made it hard to meet his eyes for too long, the kind that turned silence into something magnetic. We danced around it all day, light conversation, small touches, shared looks that lingered too long, and then, that night, when I got out of the shower and walked into the bedroom in just my towel, he was already lying on the bed, watching me with a look I couldn't pretend not to notice. "You know you make it really hard to be subtle," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "Since when were you trying to be subtle?" He smirked. "Touché." I changed quickly, trying not to think about how aware I was of him watching. When I finally crawled into bed beside him, we didn't turn off the light. We didn't pretend. He looked over at me. "What happens now?" "I don't know," I said. "But I think we already crossed the line." Adam reached out, brushing my jaw with his thumb. "Yeah," he said quietly. "We did." Then he kissed me again, this time with certainty, with pressure, with heat. And I didn't hold back. But we got close. We kissed until our mouths were raw. We touched in ways that left no room for misunderstanding. His hand slid under my shirt, mine found his waist, his neck, his lower back. When we finally stopped, it wasn't because we wanted to. It was because we had to. He held me as I lay there, catching my breath, our legs tangled together, skin damp with sweat and tension. I wasn't planning any of this, he said again, like he was still trying to convince himself. I know, I said. Me either. He pulled the blanket over both of us, kissed the side of my head, and whispered, "But I'm glad it's happening." I didn't say anything, just held on a little tighter. The next few days passed in a blur of closeness that neither of us labeled. We didn't talk about what we were doing. We didn't define it. But we kept doing it. Every night, Adam came to my room without knocking. Every morning, we acted like we hadn't fallen asleep wrapped up in each other. There was a rhythm to it now. Lazy mornings, quiet coffee, brushed shoulders in the kitchen, and those glances that said more than we ever dared to put into words. During the day, we still circled around the house like two guys house-sitting for a couple of weeks. But at night, we became something else entirely. Something intimate. Something real. One evening, we were sitting on the porch with a couple of beers, watching the sun dip behind the neighbor's rooftop. Adam leaned back in the lawn chair, one foot propped on the railing. "Did you ever think this would happen?" I knew what he meant. I just wasn't sure how honest to be. "Not really," I said. "I thought you were straight." He didn't flinch, just sipped his beer, eyes still on the sky. "I thought I was too," he said after a while. "But then I moved in with a guy who looked at me like you do." I turned to him, surprised. "You noticed that?" He chuckled. "You're not subtle." I felt my face heat. I didn't mean to make things uncomfortable. He looked over, eyes serious now. "You didn't." A pause. "You made me curious." That night, things went further. Not rushed, not all the way, but far enough that afterward we lay breathless and tangled up in each other, my head on his shoulder, his fingers trailing softly up and down my spine. Far enough that I knew it wasn't just about curiosity anymore. Not for either of us. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I murmured. "You?" He didn't answer right away, just pulled me closer. But the next morning was different. He was quiet, distant. He left the bed without a word, showered, got dressed, and disappeared downstairs before I even made it to the kitchen. I found him sitting on the back steps, smoking a cigarette I didn't know he had. "You okay?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Fine," he said, not looking at me. "You sure?" He took a drag, exhaled slow. I don't know what we're doing." That stopped me cold. "We don't have to figure it all out right now." He finally looked at me. "But we will eventually, right? This doesn't stay in Jeff's house forever." There it was, the real fear. The one I hadn't let myself think about yet. Because it was easy, what we were doing. Easy in here. In this borrowed space, this little temporary world we were pretending was ours. But eventually, the world outside was gonna knock. And we didn't have a plan for what came next. We didn't talk much that day. Adam stayed mostly in the garage, messing with the old bike Jeff had half restored and never finished. I stayed upstairs pretending to read, but really I just kept thinking about what he'd said. This doesn't stay in Jeff's house forever. He was right. I knew that. But I didn't know what to do with that kind of honesty. Not when it was so much easier pretending we were still in a bubble. When I finally went down, it was late afternoon. The sky had turned that soft gray blue it gets before a storm, and the house felt unusually quiet, like even the cats were waiting for something. He was in the kitchen, hunched over the sink, washing something with too much intensity. "You gonna avoid me all day?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. He didn't turn around. "I'm not avoiding you." "Feels like it." He shut off the faucet, grabbed a towel, and finally turned. His face was unreadable, calm, but the kind of calm that felt forced. "I'm trying not to mess this up." "You're not," I said. "Not yet." He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "So what are we doing?" I stepped closer. "I don't know, but I don't want it to stop." That softened him a little. His shoulders dropped. His mouth twitched like he wanted to smile, but didn't quite trust himself. "I'm scared I'll like this too much," he said. I stepped in, gently brushing my fingers against his arm. Too late for that. He looked up at me, really looked, and something unspoken passed between us. A shift. A silent agreement. Whatever we were both in it now. That night was different. There was no hesitation when he came to my room, no half smiles or shy glances, just quiet purpose. He kissed me the second the door closed. Slow. Certain. Not like he was testing the waters this time, but like he knew what he wanted. And it was me. The clothes came off slowly, carefully. Not rushed, but full of tension. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. His hands on me felt familiar now. His skin against mine, his breath in my ear, the way he held my waist like he couldn't quite believe I was real. When it finally happened, when we finally gave in all the way, it wasn't loud or messy. It was slow, deep, wordless. Afterward, we lay in the dark, my head on his chest, his fingers lazily tracing shapes on my arm. I didn't think it would feel like this, he said, voice low. Like what? Like I don't want it to end. The next morning, something had shifted again. But this time, it wasn't distance. It wasn't fear. It was comfort. He kissed me on the forehead before getting up to make coffee. He poured mine first. He left the bathroom door open when he brushed his teeth. It was small stuff. Domestic stuff. But it felt big, felt like something that might last if we let it. We spent the next few days like that. Half roommates, half something more. We cooked together, went on long walks to nowhere, lay on the living room floor and talked about music and the people we used to be. I asked him once what he thought would happen when Jeff got back. He didn't answer at first. Then he said, "I want to see what this looks like outside of here." I nodded. Me too. And for the first time, I let myself believe that maybe we could. It was supposed to be our last quiet weekend. Jeff and his husband weren't due back until Monday, and Adam and I had planned to spend Sunday night watching bad horror movies in bed with takeout and the cats curled at our feet. We never got to that part, because Jeff came home Saturday afternoon. The front door opened with the kind of cheerful clatter you only get from someone who's been on vacation and still has wine in their bloodstream. I heard the suitcase wheels hit the floor before I even made it halfway down the stairs. "Oh hey, you guys are here," Jeff called. "Hope you didn't wreck the place." Adam was in the kitchen. I saw the way his back straightened, the way his hand froze halfway to the cabinet. We hadn't talked about how to explain us. We hadn't needed to. Until now. Jeff rounded the corner with a big grin, arms wide like he was expecting hugs. And then he stopped, looked from Adam to me, then to the blanket on the couch that definitely wasn't there when he left. Then back to me. His smile faltered, just a little. "You two look cozy." I forced a laugh. "Hey, we kept the place standing. You're welcome." He looked at Adam again. "Thanks for helping out, by the way." Adam nodded, quiet. Jeff lingered a second longer, like he was trying to piece something together, then finally said, "Well, don't just stand there. Help me unpack the wine I bought before it disappears mysteriously like the last bottle." We didn't say much the rest of the day. Adam stayed quiet. Jeff acted normal, but I could feel his eyes on us. Watching. Not judging exactly, but definitely noticing. That night, I went up to my room alone. Adam stayed on the couch. Not because we were pretending. Because we weren't sure what came next. Around midnight, I heard the stairs creak. A second later, my door cracked open and Adam stepped inside, barefoot, wearing one of my t-shirts. "Couldn't sleep," he whispered. I sat up. I wasn't either. He climbed into bed, but didn't reach for me this time. Just lay there beside me, eyes on the ceiling. "I don't want to lose this," he said. "You won't. But it's gonna be different now." "Yeah." A long pause. Then, "Do you want it to be?" I turned to look at him. "I want this to keep going," I said. "Even after we leave this house." He met my gaze. "Then, let's figure it out." The next morning, Jeff cornered me in the kitchen while Adam was showering. You guys together? I froze. Jeff poured coffee like he hadn't just dropped a bomb. You don't have to lie. I'm not your dad. I exhaled. We didn't plan any of this. He smirked. Nobody ever does. Are you mad? He laughed. Mad? No. I just didn't expect it. I mean, he's my nephew. You're you. But you seem good together. I nodded. We are. Jeff sipped his coffee. Then don't screw it up. The last 2 days in the house passed quietly. There were no more late-night walks down the hallway. No sneaking around or pretending we were just friends. After Jeff's little talk, something settled between me and Adam. Not exactly comfort, but understanding. We weren't hiding anymore, which meant we had to be real. On our last night there, we lay in bed, the window cracked open, the late summer air cool against our skin. You ever think we wouldn't have happened if we weren't stuck here together? Adam asked. Probably not, I said. But that doesn't mean it wasn't supposed to. He turned toward me, one hand tucked under his head. What happens when we leave? I stared at the ceiling for a second. Do you want to leave this behind? I asked. No, he said immediately. I just don't know what it looks like in the real world. We figure it out. He didn't answer right away. Then he reached for my hand and laced his fingers through mine. Okay, he said. Let's figure it out. 2 weeks later, I helped him move into a new apartment 10 minutes from mine. It was nothing fancy. Some converted loft with awful lighting and one working burner. But it was his. He didn't say it out loud, but I knew he'd picked it because it was close. We still didn't use labels. Not yet. Not because we were afraid. Just because nothing quite fit. We were more than friends. More than roommates. And less concerned with what it was called than with keeping it alive. Some nights, he stayed over. Some nights, I stayed at his. There were still moments of uncertainty, nervous silences, questions we weren't sure how to ask, but the space between us never went cold. He'd show up with groceries when I forgot to shop. I'd pick up his laundry when he left it at my place. He'd steal my hoodies. I'd tease him for watching the same 3 movies on rotation. We were building something, and it was real. One night in early fall, we were walking back from dinner, the sky clear, the streetlights golden. He bumped his shoulder into mine. You ever think about how this started? You mean when you broke into my bed like a cat in the middle of the night? He grinned. I mean, yeah, I laughed. Yeah, I think about it. He was quiet for a moment, then said, I'm glad I did it. I looked over at him, his face soft in the streetlight glow. Me too. We stopped at my door. I turned the key and pushed it open. Before I could step inside, he grabbed my wrist. I want to stay tonight. You always stay. He smiled, but there was something different in it now. Something steady. I mean longer than that. My heart thudded. You sure? Yeah, he said. I'm tired of pretending this isn't where I want to be. I stepped aside and let him in. He didn't bring a bag. Didn't need to. It turns out, what started as 2 guys stuck in someone else's house for a few weeks became something bigger. Something messier, yes, but also better. We didn't plan any of it, but we didn't need to. We were already there.